At first glance, Ash Ketchum seems like a pretty nice trainer, and for the most part he is, but sometimes he can become the biggest menace in the Pokemon anime, literally to the point where Ash has created supervillains. Don't believe me? Let's go to Exhibit A, Casey. Her villain origin story takes place in the Johto region when Ash and the gang first arrive there, and they're walking down the first route. In the distance, they end up seeing a girl fighting a Rattata with her starter Pokemon Chikorita, which is typical Route 1 stuff. Ash ends up thinking this battle is interesting for some reason and wants to see how this showdown goes down. Now this girl is struggling a little bit against a level 3 Rattata, but in the end she ends up defeating Rattata and capturing it, which is pretty wholesome since everybody has humble beginnings and catches some fodder Pokemon sometimes. Casey ends up getting pretty happy and starts dancing and vibing with Chikorita. So tell me why Ash and the gang mess up her entire vibe by looking at her like she's literally stupid. This ends up pissing Casey off a bit since she didn't know she had stalkers watching her, but she ends up squashing the beef and likes Ash's Pikachu, saying that she loves having yellow Pokemon on her team. She goes over to pick up Pikachu, and I guess Pikachu was not vibing with her because he ends up shocking Casey. After all that happened, you would think Ash would give Casey some pretty good advice, because at this point in the story, Ash just finished traveling throughout the entire Kanto region and won the Orange Island, so he's a pretty experienced trainer. So tell me why somehow Ash ends up beefing with Casey in the woods about Pokemon baseball teams, and they end up challenging each other to a Pokemon battle. But this isn't a typical battle, because tell me why Ash is talking trash to a brand new trainer.
Let's have a 3-on-3 Pokemon battle. I won't have to use all of my 3.
Like what? Even Brock goes ahead and tells Ash that she's a brand new trainer, so go easy on her. Misty goes ahead and tells Ash to wrap this up quick cause they gotta go to another city, and Ash goes ahead and says,
"Don't worry, Misty, it won't take me very long to win this one."
Nah, the disrespect Ash has is absolutely crazy, but I'm kinda liking this new version of Ash with a bit of an ego. But let's play a little game. If you were Ash and you were versing a level 5 trainer, which Pokemon do you use? Do you use Pikachu telling him to go easy? Maybe use Bulbasaur since he's a bit gentle? Oh, Squirtle might be a pretty great pick since he's a low level. Or do you go ahead and use your strongest Pokemon ever, Charizard, against a level 5 Pidgey? Yeah, Ash definitely wanted to traumatize Casey with this battle because he was not playing any games. And in all honesty, to call this a battle would be extremely insulting considering Charizard kind of just stood there and knocked out Pidgey and Rattata, and then he just used Ember against Chikorita, setting the poor thing on fire to the point where it got knocked out, and Ash ended up winning the battle. Brock and Misty went over to cheer up Casey since she got absolutely destroyed, but then Ash came over to Casey saying GG like you just obliterated your friend in a fighting game, and Casey took this to heart, ran away, and started crying. And the funniest part is, Ash did not care about this at all. He was just cracking jokes and laughing with the gang about obliterating Casey. To make things even worse, when Casey was at her lowest and would need good influences around her, she ends up encountering Team Rocket in the forest. They end up brainwashing Casey into thinking Ash cheated in the battle because there's some rule where you can't use Charizards against new trainers, and honestly Team Rocket's kind of spitting that is a good rule, but it's obviously not true. And with all this being said and done, Casey now has a brand new motivation to completely defeat Ash since she feels cheated out of a battle. Casey ends up going through her training arc and challenges Ash to a Pokemon battle again, and in this baseball diamond, Ash decides to go a little easier on Casey this time and only uses Pikachu. And when Pikachu went into Thunder Shock, Chikorita was actually pretty impressive, being able to block it, and Casey even got a few good hits in. And just when Ash was about to get serious and show Casey what's up, Team Rocket did their usual shenanigans, getting this big robot to hit both Chikorita and Pikachu, capturing the both of them, and the same old happened where Ash and the gang teamed up and got back their Pokemon and blasted off Team Rocket. After all this, Casey and Ash made up, and she realized Ash wasn't that bad of a guy, and you would think that her story ends here. She would go off on her own adventure and become a pretty strong trainer, but the damage Ash did to her went straight to her head, because let's go to Exhibit B, the Bug Catching Festival. Later down the line, Ash and the gang end up going to a festival where people catch a bunch of bugs, and it's a massive competition, and they end up seeing Casey. Casey walks up to them bragging, saying that she's been on a winning streak and she doesn't lose anymore and she's a completely different trainer. She also starts bickering with Ash, letting Ash know that she's a completely different trainer and nobody can stop her. Ash takes this to heart too and says that he'll challenge Casey whenever he wants and always wins. The competition begins where a bunch of Pokemon trainers have to go in the forest and catch as many bug-type Pokemon as possible so they can win a prize. Casey ends up having some pretty good momentum. She ends up having a little beef with Ash since they tried to catch the same Pokemon, but Casey's being a pretty good trainer until the unthinkable happens. Chikorita ends up getting jumped by a group of pine cones, and it's not looking that good, but Chikorita in the end ends up coming on top, and Ash tells Casey to chill because her Pokemon's getting tired, but Casey does not listen to this. Even Chikorita looks like she clearly wants a rest, but Casey does not care at all, and they encounter a Scyther, and she sends Chikorita out to deal with the Scyther. This battle went as bad as you could have imagined because Scyther was absolutely ragdolling Chikorita and Casey didn't care, just telling Chikorita to keep fighting, but it was looking pretty bad. Ash starts realizing Casey is going way too far and wants to intervene and tries to give Casey some advice to return Chikorita and just listen to what she says.
Barely hanging on. It's too weak to attack. What do you know? Chikorita's gonna do whatever I tell it to.
Funny enough, Chikorita gets instantly clapped the second Casey says this, and Ash had to jump in using Thunder Shock to defeat the Scyther. Ash realizes that Casey is not going to listen to her, so he just starts talking trash, telling Casey to stick to fighting Weedles and he'll deal with the Scythers. Casey got more mad about this and realized that her Chikorita is missing, because Chikorita wanted to separate herself from her trainer. In the woods, Misty's Togepi tried to give Chikorita some advice and to cheer up, but Chikorita just seemed like it didn't want to be around Casey anymore. When Casey ended up finding Chikorita in the woods, Chikorita ended up looking pretty sad and walking away from Casey, and you would think this is the time for Casey to apologize for being too harsh, but Casey instead went ahead and told Chikorita she doesn't allow quitters on her team, so Chikorita better smarten up. And to be honest, I can't entirely blame Casey for this. The reason why she's like this is because she thinks that she has to be the strongest trainer by any means possible due to Ash's Charizard completely traumatizing her. And in the process of this, she just ends up pushing her Pokemon way too far. Misty and Brock end up coming over and lecturing Casey, telling her that she is going too far. She needs to treat her Pokemon as equals and not as these tools. Misty even says that these Pokemon fight for you, so they should be treated with respect. These words finally seemed to get through Casey's head, and she actually started crying and apologized to Chikorita for going too far and admitting her wrongs. Chikorita ended up forgiving Casey, and they went back on the battlefield. And I feel like Casey got the lucky ending, being able to meet good people and put her on the right path, because I don't think it would be that hard for people in the Pokemon world to think they have to be strong by any means necessary, pushing their Pokemon way too far. We actually don't gotta wonder about this since we've literally seen this plotline with Paul being a complete psychopath sometimes. While this was going on, Ash ended up catching a Beedrill in the forest, winning the competition, but then he ended up getting captured by Team Rocket. When all hope seemed lost, Casey ended up stepping up to the occasion and using Chikorita to end up freeing Ash, and in the process, Chikorita started to evolve into a Bayleaf. And with that, it showed how far Casey's growth as a Pokemon trainer has come. Ash was so proud of Casey that he even ended up gifting her the Beedrill, since she said she likes yellow Pokemon and all, and Casey was so proud and happy and went off on her own adventure. The next time we ended up seeing Casey was so far into the Johto run of the season that by this point she already had a Meganium. Casey also started making fun of Ash for still having a Bayleaf, saying it should have evolved by now if he's such an experienced trainer, but Ash said he wanted to keep his Bayleaf the same and not evolve it to a Meganium, which I guess is nothing new for our boy Ash. By the end of this episode, Casey ended up adding a brand new yellow Pokemon onto its team known as Elekid, and swore to evolve her team and become a super strong trainer to be one of the very best and even challenge Ash in the Johto League. Though you may be wondering, did Casey ever become a super strong trainer? Well, we will never know because the writers completely forgot about her character and we literally never saw her again. So if you actually want to know who the strongest Pokemon trainer ever was, just click the video on your screen because I answered that question in the video.